Welcome to Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers, a podcast for women of color and first gen who are breaking generational cycles and glass ceilings by going places no one before them has ever gone. I'm your host, leadership coach, and eldest daughter of immigrants, Mariela Delamora. I left a 16-year marketing career to create a multiple six-figure-a-year coaching business as a single mom. Each week, you'll learn how to build unshakable self-trust, become in demand, lead with confidence, and make more money by being more of who you are. Hey, you guys, welcome to another episode of Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers. I'm going to talk about something that is a common topic of coaching calls that I boiled down for you guys as far as something that you could use to even just troubleshoot sales, demand, and how the answer might look different in different seasons. It does vary depending on the season. And this isn't just for folks who have not really ever sold their offer consistently before. What happens is even when we've been around for a really long time, like I have, we will get into certain ruts where we think that we're doing all the right things, quote unquote right things, but we will miss the plot somewhere or we'll over-index in a certain area somewhere. And the thing is that because we are the closest to our business, it's almost like trying to observe yourself without looking at a mirror. We kind of need help sometimes to look across the board to be okay, what actually has been happening, and look across the board at what you've been putting out, what you've done over the last 3 to 6 months. And so, coaches obviously can help to identify these spots, these visibility spots that we don't see, or strategy, gaps. But also I think even if we do have that, it's hard because we have to kind of go with the full picture of what's happening. And again, this is so normal. It's almost like how no matter what it is that you're doing, you will never just be able to say okay, this is it. I've got the recipe. I'm just going to do this forever. Things change, you change, the market changes, you've evolved. So we kind of don't ever earn our way out of troubleshooting, I would say. And so what I'm going to share with you today is really for folks who know that they have an offer that people love, that has gotten people results. You may have gotten into a rut where people are coming to you through referrals, or you're retaining clients, but you haven't created as many new opportunities or new sales calls as you would have liked. But you know that the offer is validated in the sense that people buy it, people want it, and it works, right? It's different if you're still trying to figure out what that is. But once you have product market fit, and essentially product market fit is you have a product that the market wants, they bought it, it works, it does the thing it's going to do, right? Once you have that, it's really probably down to one of the things that I'm going to talk about in this episode. So I'm going to talk about signs that your offer isn't the issue. It may be your visibility or your positioning, the small shifts that can dramatically increase conversion without you burning out, and how to stop tweaking your offer and instead start dialing in your marketing and your approaches so that you can help to create more demand with the audience that you already have. So with that, I'm going to talk about 8 different things that could be part of the issue of why your offer isn't selling consistently, especially if it's not selling through your visibility efforts, through your marketing, and it's mostly selling through referrals and people, word of mouth, things like that, which are always really good indicators that people love you, they're happy with you, they don't just refer you for no reason. But when we're trying to troubleshoot, but how can I create my own opportunities? It's going to be down to one of these 8 things. I'm going to, at a high level, say what they are so that you can kind of anchor in as I'm talking through them. So number 1 is differentiation. You are speaking to problem solution versus speaking to an unmet need. Number 2, you are missing from your marketing. And number 3, you are over-indexing on serving and educating instead of actually selling. You think you're selling, but you're actually over-indexing on just serving your people and educating them. Number 4 is you are trying to change your audience's mind and arguing with them, trying to convince them is number 4. Number 5 is you're missing social proof. Number 6 is you're using your own language instead of their language. And that's subtle as well, but I talked to you about what that looks like. Number 7, there is a mismatch between the offer and the approach. So you would sell a high ticket, high trust, high proximity offer very differently from a lower ticket, standardized offer, right? So, and then number 8, visibility in the wrong places. So
we'll go into this. So that way I just wanted to cover them at a high level. So you're like, oh, okay, I feel like I might be 3 and 5, right? So differentiation. So this would be, I would say, probably an earlier stage business problem. When I work with clients who have landed a few clients, but not any consistently, typically they're not well positioned yet. And what this means is like, you do this thing. Let's say you are a leadership coach, but I'm just like, yes, but how are you different? Like you help them with this, but like, is that what they're asking for? Like, how are you different? What's the unmet need that you solve? And sometimes they're just focusing on problem solution or like symptom, whatever. This is how I help. But it's like, there isn't an overarching theme of like, but what is missing that you are solving for them? So what I would say with this is like, there's a difference between an unmet need and a problem. An unmet need is talking about what is it that they have been trying to solve for in different ways, or what do they think they're already solving for, but somehow it's just missing the mark. Because that way, even if there was someone with the same title as you, you're instantly coming in and like you're talking to a gap. You're talking to this little slice that they have been trying to get at and like they just can't quite get there, versus like talking about individual symptoms. It's kind of like, okay, well, you can solve, let's say for like getting a promotion, but so can someone else. But like, what's the missing piece? The unmet need really tells them like, you haven't tried this before. You haven't heard this before, right? So an unmet need again is really like, what is it that they have been trying to do, but somehow it's missed the mark? They probably tried to solve it in other ways. Why is that unmet need happening? Who is experiencing the unmet need? What have they been doing versus what is missing for them? Speaking to an unmet need will always create more demand because you're instantly tapping into something that they agree that they already are experiencing and something they agree that they want. And they'll instantly say like, I haven't heard this before. Even if your actual solution isn't vastly different from, let's say, someone with a similar job title, the lens that you bring in is how you position yourself differently. So essentially, this is just brand positioning, right? Differentiation. How are you different in a meaningful way? How are you different in a way that they haven't tried before? How are you different in a way that matches up with demand? So that's, and I say that this is an early business problem because if you didn't have enough differentiation, you probably wouldn't ever get past like client number 3, or all of your clients would come in through referrals and you never landed a client through your marketing. That's typically what happens. So like I said, it tends to be an earlier stage business problem, but I've worked with clients who have like landed 8 clients and more, and they weren't well positioned, mostly because they had a really strong network, and people like basically people would sell their future clients on them and say, oh my gosh, they're great. You need to work with them. And then they kind of bypass the fact that their marketing didn't have the right positioning, but you won't be able to get too far without it. Any brand needs differentiation, right? So what is the unmet need you solve, not just problem solution? Number 2, you're missing from your marketing. So I will see this where it's like you're educating, you're serving, you're talking about the problem, you're talking about the solution, but like, who are you? What is your story? What do you believe in? What do you value? What are you willing to stand behind? And I think that the way that you'll know this if you were to go to someone's page or you read their emails or you went to their website, you wouldn't feel a sense of connection to them or knowing who they are beyond what it is that they do. And it's subtle, but the knowing who you are, like who is the person behind it, what's the lens, what's their story behind it, is what creates the emotional connection to say, this is a person that I trust to lead me. This is a person that I trust to guide me. And this is important because now more than ever, we aren't just filling an information gap, like we're bridging a trust gap. Like there's a huge trust gap that needs to be filled, and them knowing like, who are you? What are you about? What do you believe in? What's your story is much more important than ever, right? So really integrating yourself, even if you feel like the thing that you are providing is very straightforward. Even if you are a service provider and you think, okay, well, like the service should speak for itself, the client results should speak for themselves, it still matters because it's like, but who is the person behind that strategy? Who is the person behind that deliverable? How do you see things? In fact, I think in the service provider world, it's even a bigger gap, like, cause I don't see it. It's like they lead with what it is that they do. But I also think about like service providers I've hired in the past, including people who have been core members of my team, right? Like I think about these are people who I paid over 5 figures to. It's because of the lens that they brought. It was because of their thought leadership. It was because it wasn't like, oh, you're telling me some like childhood thing you went through. That's not what I mean. It's just like I had insight into how they thought and what is the lens that they bring to their work. That's what made me hire one service provider over another. And people sleep on this sometimes because it's like, no, your work is not enough. Like it could be great, but they really want to know, like, who are you? What are you about? What do you believe? What's the lens that you bring to your work? Right. So like I said, personality, values, storytelling, all of those things are really important because people need to feel connected to you. They need to understand the lens that you bring. So that's number 2. Number 3 is sometimes you think you're selling, but you're really just serving and educating. And I know that that is an important part of marketing, right? But what happens is you are just kind of stalling by being like, okay, I'm going to educate you here and I'm going to do these tips here. And it's like, that's great. But like at a certain point, it's like what you're training your audience to do is just like stay tuned for like updates, but you're not actually guiding them through. If you're here, here's some things that I would recommend, but here's what it would actually look like with me. Or with us, with our agency, right? And what happens is the PS line or the selling part is such a, like an afterthought. It's like you spend this whole time with this brilliant email, post, whatever. And then it's like, if you want to know more about this, like work with me. And it's like, about what? And so I think that like drawing a clear bridge between like, here is what's happening and here is how I would help you. Not always, here's how you do it yourself, because that's not always what we want to. So sometimes the serving part is by saying, here is how I would help you with that. Not here is how you would do it. So there's like a differentiation there, right? One of the things that I ask my clients, especially when we think about and so many like daughters of immigrants will have this thought as well around like, no, but I need to educate and like they almost have to earn their right to sell or like pitch, is that you have people in your audience right now who don't need to be sold on you anymore. They just have a lot of thoughts about like, I don't know if this is the right time and like, could they help me with this? And I don't know, because like I haven't followed through in the past, but like they love you. They think you're great. And they're also not booking with you because they have a lot of thoughts. So what would you say to the person that's had your application open in one of their browser tabs for the last 3 weeks? Would you be educating them? They don't need to be educated. They have a lot of thoughts about why that browser tab has that application open and they haven't submitted it to schedule a call with you. Okay. So everybody, if you've been in business long enough and you've been marketing long enough, you absolutely have browser tab people who have checked you out, who have looked at your website, looked at your posts, crept on your past clients, like all the things they've checked out. They know your rates. They know all the things. They've opened it up. It's like when you go and you're like, I'm going to serve them. It's like, great. Yes, serve them, but you don't need to educate and teach them things. They just have thoughts about why they haven't scheduled the call yet. That's selling. Right? So it doesn't need to be pushy or coercive or shamey at all. It's just, what would you say to the person who doesn't need to be sold on you anymore? So that's one thing that I would say is, and this happens a lot because we conflate serving with selling, and it's part of it, but it's not the same thing. It's almost like they need to hear something else. The relationship is a little more serious now. You can talk to them about logistics and this is what happens. And here's what happens in the first 30 days, or here's what happens on the discovery call. Here's the information that I'm going to ask. By the end of the call, this is what we're going to go through. And this is what happens. And, if you're worried about time, or if you're worried about summer, if you're worried about this, here's why, you're going to be able to do it. It's like really at this point, it's like, how is it that you're going to be able to help them no matter what? But at this point, you're not educating them. You notice like you're just talking through any thoughts or resistance that they may have. So that is the difference. Over-indexing on educating and serving versus actually selling. That was number 3. Number 4 is what I see sometimes is it's very, very subtle, but it's like the arguing with your audience, trying to change their mind, convincing them, like that is an energy versus being in conviction and confidence about what it is that you offer and why your approach is the way that it is and why it's needed and why it's important versus you're doing this, but this doesn't work. When you've done this, like comparison, I think if you notice in your marketing that you're frustrated and you have thoughts about how your clients buy or what their thoughts are, and you're trying to change their thoughts and you're trying to point out where they're wrong, that in itself what actually happens is that the person, in order for them to say yes to you, number one, they don't feel good consuming your marketing because they kind of feel judged. And then even if they were to reach out, it's almost like they have to admit that they were wrong versus being like, you've tried this and it made sense and it served that purpose and it helped you with this. And now here's what we're going to help you with. And you notice how that's different? It's like you're trying to count calories and like that doesn't work and like that's not going to get you what you need versus you did that, you saw what that got you, that's such a strong baseline that you're going to bring into coaching. It's like it's so different to be able to say that the things that they've done or the things that they've tried or the things that they think aren't wrong, that they're only going to serve them to get even better results with you. So that's the subtle difference. And I think that you might even notice that you're here if you are selling them on the value of what you do. So it's like, if you were to, like with coaching, if you were to sell them on coaching, it's like, don't sell them on coaching. Like, we're not trying to convince people that they should get coaching versus doing it on their own. We're trying to tell them, how is it that our approach is actually going to get them what they need and support them? So it's a subtle difference of knowing your value, knowing that you can help people and speaking to that and how any past thoughts, any past actions that they've taken can only serve them and that they weren't wrong. So that is number 4. Trying to change your audience's mind and arguing with them is another, just a thing to scan. It's like, do you sense any defensiveness in your posts and in your email? Number 5, social proof. So if you were to look back at like the last, 10 things you posted, is there a client story in there? Not just testimonials, because I have found in my years of doing this that like I used to post a bunch of testimonials and they were great. And some people used to sign up with me just from reading my testimonial page, to be honest. But as I raised my prices and all of that, like people wanted to know like, yes, but how did you help that person? Like, yes, they said that about you, but like, where were they when they started? Do they have similar circumstances to me? What were some of the mindset blocks that they had? How did you actually help them? Like, what did it look like? And so storytelling more about your clients on a regular basis is important, and like let them into the process to be like, this is where they were. This was the resistance that they had. These were the worries that they had. These were the constraints that this person had in their life. Here's how we worked through those constraints or those restrictions in their life and in their business, and how this person was still able to do that. Because when somebody is reading a story about another client or like a case study about another client, they're able to better say like, I also have that thought. I also have that worry. I also have that constraint. Oh, okay, I get it. Oh, I understand. So it's like full disclosure, right? You're able to do full disclosure and allow your future clients to be able to vet their own concerns through the stories that you're telling them and being like, oh, I get it now. I get it. Oh, so they're also able to help people that have the same worries and constraints as I do. So that's important. It's social proof, but like thorough social proof in terms of telling stories about the how and what happened and where were they and what were their worries and what their constraints were, like telling stories. And this doesn't mean tell the whole story of like, if you worked with somebody for 6 months and you have to tell the whole story. It's even as you're celebrating wins. You could literally talk about a client conversation that you had this week and somebody had a result, right? But instead of being like, this person had this result this week, it's much more powerful to say, this person had this result this week. Here's what actually happened to allow this person. So in full disclosure, this is what they had. Here's what we did. Here were some of the worries. Here's how we solved for it. Those sorts of things really show people like, I know my stuff and I got you. Like no matter what is happening, I got you. We will figure this out together. There isn't anything you can throw at me that I haven't solved for. Let's talk. That's a different level of social proof than I worked with so-and-so and they were great. Like anybody can say that, but it doesn't contextualize it like for them. So storytelling, case study based social proof is number 5. Look at like the things you've talked about recently, because sometimes that's all you got to do is like you haven't actually done that recently, and people just need that for like security and safety and like, oh, I get it. Even if you feel like you talked about this 20 times, when you show it versus tell, it actually matters so much more. So even if you've talked about a certain approach that you use, when you show how you use that approach and how it helped a client, it is going to go so much further. Number 6 is using your own language versus theirs also is part of what will affect demand. So what you actually need to do is stay super, super anchored in what it is that they are saying, not what you are thinking. So what happens is we will over intellectualize what we think clients are thinking. It's like we're using like PhD level language and graduate school level language when they're just like, yeah, I just feel like I'm just really tired of breaking promises to myself. I just really want to say what I want to do what I say I'm going to do. I just want to stop spending so much time thinking about marketing. I just want to, like, it's so simple. And so this is a regular practice that even I have, to have a database of your client's language. I do this through regularly updating this as well, because I'm always refining who I'm attracting, right? So I've been elevating, my ideal client like a lot more recently, because I think about how I can help lots of people, but who am I best poised to serve? So part of how I do this is taking applications from discovery calls, pulling it, making it into a document of all of your applications. Take out anybody that wasn't an ideal client though, because you don't want their words. So take all of the client application, pull a report, whether it's a spreadsheet or it's in a Google Doc. You also can pull onboarding forms, especially if the onboarding forms ask them more about their challenges and like their desired outcomes, pulling that language as well. And then putting it into ChatGPT and saying, ChatGPT, can you please pull out common themes in this client's problems, common themes in their desired outcomes and goals, reasons why they chose me, reasons why they took action now. What are some objections that this client had that was displayed in like their application, and just have it like list it all out. And then I've asked it to say, can you also include actual verbatim quotes that represent the problems they're experiencing, verbatim quotes that represent the goals that they're after, verbatim quotes for all of these so that you actually have their language. I actually built a custom GPT around this because there's a tool that I use in my mastermind and with my clients called the Client Brain Bank. And the Client Brain Bank is essentially a client expert that knows everything about your clients. It knows it's trained with all of the applications, onboarding forms. It's trained with sales call transcripts as well. So it's like, hey, here's the sales call transcript from this person. Can you further fill out goals, problems, why me, why now, with the information from this? And so essentially what happens is I don't need to remember all of this, but I can go into ChatGPT and say, based on what you know of my ideal clients, can you come up with 5 questions for me to answer in podcast episodes or in emails? Can you identify like some possible reservations, questions, misconceptions, like objections for me to speak about in my marketing? So that way you're not like making stuff up. And it's important to use their language, because we will always over intellectualize and make it fluffy, and like it's stuff that's going to go over their head. So that's super, super key, is learning how to use your client's language, not yours. So that's another reason that you can have a great offer and it's not selling consistently, because you're using language that is mismatched to what they're actually actively thinking. Okay. So far we've said 6 things. We've said reasons that you have a great offer and it's not selling. Number 1, differentiation. Number 2, you are missing from your marketing. Number 3, you're over indexing on educating versus selling. Number 4 is you are trying to change your mind or audience's mind and you're arguing with your audience. Number 5, you're missing storytelling based social proof, where you actually like say, this is exactly how we did it. Number 6, you are using your language instead of your clients. Right? You need to use your client's language. Okay. So we've got 2 more. And again, you may not have all of these issues, but guaranteed all of us are sitting in some variation of the 8 that I'm going to share with you today. So 2 more. There is number 7 is there's a mismatch between what you're selling and the approach that you're using. So your marketing has to reflect the buying psychology of your audience. And to illustrate this, I'm going to use kind of 2 different examples of, if you are selling something that is low ticket, it solves kind of an entry level problem. It's, all of that. It's going to be very different than the way that someone's going to buy something higher ticket, where there's close proximity to you that delivers the offer, right? That's going to be very different. High ticket, high trust, or like low ticket, standardization. It's very different in terms of like, what do they need? One type of buyer might need, like the low ticket buyer might just need more like information. They need to know that it's a simple solution that's going to work for their situation no matter what. They're more likely to be entry level buyers that are looking for clarity, not complexity. They're just like, okay, yeah, does this work? How can I, how's this going to work for me? The low ticket buyers, often for the standardized offers, the simple offers, are looking for they're buying what they're going to be able to do. Whereas the high ticket, high trust, high proximity are buying who they will be, which is very different. It's like, who am I going to be able to be versus what can I do? So on the higher ticket side, these are clients who they really want to know, like, can you meet me where I'm at? Do you understand my specific situation? Have you helped clients like me? They're going to put you through the ringer a little more, right? Because they're like, this may be a client who's spending $10,000 or more, right? They want to know, do you understand my specific situation? Whether that is like their job or their kids or their, corporate history and their identity that's attached to it, or like the fact that they have a big team and they have a big overhead. Like there's just a lot more conditions. And so these types of buyers are going to be looking for like, does your content like really demonstrate like expertise that you really, really get them? Trust matters. Your values matter more here. Your lens matters. Like they're going to want to know, like, how do you think? Things like third party credibility matter more in higher ticket purchases as well, because they're going to look at like, well, who else has vouched for you? Who has let you on their podcast? Who has let you on their stage? Like who says you're great besides you, right? And even client results, right? It's like client results are great. And they do matter in higher ticket purchases, but they're also looking for overall credibility, like you having thought leadership, you standing on business on something. Like, what do you stand on, right? Like, what are your values? Those things matter more for higher ticket purchases. And the reason this matters is because if you're doing high ticket, high trust, high proximity clients who are going to work with you over and over, like these are going to be, high lifetime value clients who, many of my clients have invested over $50,000, like working with me, right? Versus if you're selling something lower ticket, then even your marketing strategy shouldn't be around like volume and virality and more views, and audience growth won't matter as much. It's going to matter more the impression that you make on people when they land in your brand. Whereas if you're growing a volume, like a lower ticket, you probably always need new people. So it's like part of your marketing strategy is going to be like, how do you grow your email list? How do you grow your following? Do you have like a way of getting people into your funnel? Like it's just different. And sometimes what I see is like people who are selling high ticket, high trust, and they're using like virality based tactics, but when in reality, you need to deepen the trust and deepen the relationship with your audience versus trying to get brand new people in. So it's just different approaches, right? So number 7 is mismatch between offer and approach. Number 8, final, and this isn't always the case, but I would say that if you felt like you haven't generated new sales calls from your marketing in a while and you used to, and maybe you don't anymore, or like you're just kind of noticing that you've stalled, or that you do have people in your audience, but somehow like they have to pass through someone, whatever, and it's just not doing it. I've found sometimes what happens is you have visibility in a certain platform, but it may not be the best platform for you. I'll give you a couple of examples. So either you haven't done lead gen in a long time, or you're not in a platform that like is the best for you. So I have a few clients who I've coached through this, and it's really that you have to think of like, who are your people and where do they hang out most? Now you might think, oh, but everybody hangs out on social media. True, to some extent, yes and no, but not everybody shops on social media for like high ticket purchases. Not everybody is on there like that. Some people work long ass jobs, or they have a brick and mortar business. They're exhausted. They're not on social media for their job. And so they go on social media to like follow funny accounts or their favorite skincare brand or connect with family and friends, right? And so I think sometimes if you're selling services like leadership coaching, if you're selling services that have to do with like marketing strategy, brand building strategy, things like that, that are like, you almost need a more mature business owners that probably regularly are bringing in 7 figures, you need to be on LinkedIn, right? So I think about sometimes like you have great messaging, but you're on a platform that is limiting your ability to get in front of your ideal people because of just the way that it's based. It's more of like a visual platform. So I just see a lot of times like people are on IG when they really need to be on LinkedIn. And this has even happened with just clients of mine who their marketing and it's like inevitably they start talking to coaches. And I'm like, your market is not coaches. Like you can help coaches, but your market is so much bigger than coaches. And I think what happens is we get introduced to entrepreneurship sometimes through coaching. And then we inevitably start talking to coaches. And I'm like, is your audience coaches or is your audience business owners who have X amount of revenue and do this type of service? Like we have to think like, who are our actual people? Because what ends up happening is we'll start talking as if our current audience is the market. And that is not the case. You have to think of who are my ideal clients and where do they actually regularly hang out at? If your people are elsewhere, take the stuff you've already written, started to put it over on LinkedIn, didn't reinvent it or nothing. Like it doesn't need to be all that deep that you like reinvent a whole strategy. It's just being visible there. And when you think about it, it's like you should have more than one place. You should have platforms that you're on that reward, that are like easy for you to be discovered at. And when you create for Instagram, the way that you get seen is through virality, and then it goes viral. So that's number 8. So I'm going to recap again, 1 through 8. You need to focus on an unmet need instead of a problem. Number 2, you are missing from your marketing. Number 3, over-indexing on serving and educating instead of selling. Number 4, you're trying to change your audience's mind and subconsciously arguing with them. Number 5, you're missing social proof. That's story-based, case study-based. Number 6 is you're using your own language instead of your client's language. Number 7, there's a mismatch between your offer and approach, particularly between low ticket standardized offers and high ticket, high trust. Number 8, visibility in the wrong places, or it's time to do lead gen. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as that. And sometimes it's really just like our thoughts have been shitty about ourselves. Sometimes like what happens is like we get frustrated, or we're sitting in money scarcity and we have low thoughts about ourselves, or we're burnt out, and that just messes everything up. So I will just say there's obviously like a big caveat of like what could actually be you being in like a depressed low season. I mean, we have lots of reasons to feel that way, especially with what's happening in our country right now, that sometimes it's just that. So just wanted to leave you with that, because like I said, it could be strategy, but sometimes, like I said, it's how we're thinking about ourselves. So if this hit home, you're likely not far off from where you want to be. You're probably closer than you think. The good news is that you know that you have product market fit. You have an offer that works, but your marketing just needs to reflect the depth of what you do and who you are. And oftentimes with any business problem, it's just a few tweaks. It's rarely ever an overhaul. It almost never is. So you don't need to change everything, right? It's just identifying what are the things that actually would make the biggest difference to change. And that's something that I can definitely help you with. So if you know that you want that hands-on support, someone that's going to look across the business and not just the business, but like how you've been doing, what your relationship is with your business, what your relationship is with your life, like making sure that you also feel like your business isn't like the center of your whole world. Those are all things that in private coaching, we really do look across the board. Like this is something that I do at the very beginning. Now with my clients that work with me for 6 months is I ask you a ton of questions about you, your business, what you've been doing, where you're marketing, where you've been doing lead gen. Like I look across at your messaging, and then we start off with a VIP day at the very beginning before we dive into 6 months together. So basically at the beginning, we already identify the gaps. Literally on the discovery call, we identify the gaps and then we fill them in. We work on them together. At the end of the VIP day, we have decisions made, we have copy written, we have things done so that the rest of the 6 months can be spent actually like implementing, coaching, working through your resistance, working through your thoughts, and just really bringing the human element to it. Because if it was just as simple as like strategy and implementing the strategy, like business would be so much easier. What I'm here to do as well is to look at like, where is it that you actually have resistance to the thing that you want? Where did you lose belief in yourself and in your offer? Where have you possibly evolved and you're selling something that you don't feel fully aligned with anymore? Maybe you're going into a new chapter of life. Like I have clients who are there now because their family is growing, or they're thinking about expanding their family, or they're just in a different stage of life and they really want to be able to work with a coach that can take all of the things that they love and not necessarily get rid of them, but just refine them. And that is something that we do in one-on-one coaching because it's me and you every other week for 6 months. So if that is something that you want to learn more about, you can go to my website or you can go to my Instagram. Everything's in the show notes. And the link in bio has all information about working together. I have packages where we work together with monthly calls or biweekly calls. And like I said, I got you in all of this. You won't have to spin out trying to figure out where to focus your energy. That's something that we identify up front. So thank you all for being with me, and I will see you in the next episode.